Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Luffy ate Mochi Mochi no Mi Fruit Part 2. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video, and also go support the ArcadianKnight for writing that awesome fanfic. Let's start this video. Shortly after Luffy and friends left Orange Town, "You what?" exclaimed Nami while choking and slapping Luffy. "But Nami, the mayor Asen would need my help if he and the people were to repair the town. Besides, you still have treasure left over, right?" said Luffy while pointing to the bag of treasure on Nami's boat. "Luffy? That bag of treasure you left behind was worth 5 million Beely. It was supposed to be mine," yelled Nami, still choking Luffy. "And you forgot the problem I'm in, you're such an idiot," whispered Nami in a cracking, quiet voice so only Luffy could hear. After hearing this, Luffy widened his eyes. "I'm such an idiot. I forgot all about the problem she is facing with her village, and I just gave away the treasure she needs. I need to apologize," Luffy thought. Before Nami could do anything, Luffy walked up to her. He kept getting closer and closer and put his arms around her and wrapped her up in a warm hug. At first Nami was shocked and was about to push him away. But then, Luffy leaned in closer and put his mouth to her ear. He whispered, "I'm really sorry Nami, I forgot that you needed that treasure to save your village. I will try to make it up to you when I can, I just hope that you can forgive me." Nami was now speechless at what Luffy said and just returned the hug. They were in their own little world until the moment was ruined by an interrupting swordsman. "Sorry to interrupt your little moment here, but I just remembered something." "Luffy, what in the fuck is this Haki thing?" yelled Zoro in both confusion and frustration. Luffy and Nami pushed each other away and were blushing furiously. Luffy turned and blinked before remembering that he would explain it. He grinned and dunked his hand into the water. He concentrated for a few seconds before turning back to his crew. He loved using those two words, his crew. "Alright, since I did tell you guys that I would explain what Haki is," said Luffy with his arms crossed and looking like he's thinking. "Alright, I'll go ahead and find an island where I can properly demonstrate it and explain it. Once I go find one, I'll come back and take us there. Any questions?" Nami raised her hand and spoke. "Yay, how the fuck are you going to find an island?" screamed Nami. "Well, since I am water, I can sense a disturbance or breaks in the sea, the big ones that I sense are islands. I just checked and there's an island nearby. I'm gonna head there now. Now any more questions?" asked Luffy while looking straight at Nami. "Yay, how long is it going to take?" asked Nami. Luffy grinned and replied, "You'll see." As he said that, he jumped off the boat and Nami and Zoro were about to grab him but remembered his powers. However, they weren't expecting him to be walking on the water a few meters away from the boat. He ran a little away from the boat, so he was at a safe distance to do what he was about to do next. "Okay both of you should hold onto the boat for dear life unless you want to fly a few feet," said Luffy grinning at Zoro and Nami. They both just nodded and gripped the boat as tight as they could, not wanting to question what he was doing. "Oh, and this might hurt your ears. But I'm sure you'll be fine," Luffy said while laughing. He got into a running position similar to Olympic runners at the beginning of the sprint. It was silent for a second and then the ground beneath Luffy began trembling. Luffy grinned and moved his leg forward. As he did this, he used his powers to shoot his leg forward and then the other. Within a second he accelerated to Mach speed. The sea split in half behind him due to the force he was putting out. There was a loud, deafening sonic boom that could have been heard for miles. Within a matter of seconds Luffy reached an island. He walked to the beach and stood there concentrating. Using his Haki, Luffy sensed that this island was uninhabited and had large animals he could use to demonstrate his Haki. Zoro and Nami were screaming and covering their ears after Luffy began running. They were trying their best to keep themselves on the boat until the water settled. They were both jaw-dropped and were thinking the same thing. "First I'm gonna get some answers from that dumbass, then I'm gonna kill him." As if on cue, their 17-year-old captain came running back at the same speed and stopped a few meters in front of the boats. He just casually walked on board and sat down. "Yosh, I found an island where I can show you Haki. What is wrong with you guys? You get attacked by a sea king just now? I was only gone for a few seconds," I asked Luffy, fully knowing what happened while looking at Zoro and Nami who were sprawled across the boats looking like they were just mauled. "This is your fault, you retard," they both yelled and Nami hit his head. "I did warn you guys," Luffy said with a pout while rubbing the bump on his head. "First, what the hell did you just do, Luffy?" Nami asked, still wondering what the hell happened. "Okay, I used my devil fruit powers to move faster. By propelling each of my legs forward with a large force, I can run at supersonic speeds. This creates a sonic boom, which was that loud ass noise you guys probably heard," said Luffy while standing up. "Now this time, there won't be a noise, but you guys should hold on tight." Luffy, "Why?" But they were cut off as a huge wave appeared behind them and they began screaming. The boat was now moving at about 200 miles an hour. Nami clung to Luffy and was holding onto him for dear life. About a minute later they reached the island. Luffy was laughing while Nami was still frozen and clinging to him. Zoro passed out on the beach from shock. Nami opened her eyes as the boat came to a stop and her immediate reaction was to hit Luffy. "You dumbass. Warn us before you do something like that," scolded Nami. "Okay, I will now then, let's get started with this demonstration." As Luffy said that, a huge tiger about 10 times the size of an elephant came bursting out of the jungle and behind Luffy. "Luffy, watch out, there's a huge ass tiger behind you," yelled Nami. "Calm down, Nami, I got this under control." "Okay, let's get this demo started. First, I will explain to you what Haki is. Haki is a dormant power that resides in all living creatures. However, it can also be in certain objects that have souls such as swords, observation, fighting spirit, intimidation. It's like normal senses. However, usually people fail to notice this power or fail to control it, Luffy explained as the tiger got closer to him. "The ability to remove all doubt, that is true power," said Luffy in a serious voice. "The first type is the Kenbun-shoku Haki. The ability to feel the presence of others. This allows you to see people that are concealed or too far away to see. However, if you are skilled enough, you can predict someone's action seconds before they make it. You can also sense the emotions, feelings and thoughts of others." As Luffy was finished explaining, the tiger raised its paw and began bringing it down upon Luffy. "Luffy!" Nami screamed as Zoro grabbed his katana and was prepared to cut it. "Don't worry, he's attacking with his paw from the right," Luffy said while he effortlessly dodged. Luffy was continuously dodging until he knocked it back a few meters to speak some more. Nami and Zoro were looking at Luffy with amazement. Now onto the second type of Haki. It's called Busoshoku Haki. Simply put, it's like wearing invisible armor. If the armor is strong enough, it can be used offensively to deal out huge amounts of damage. You can also imbue objects with Haki, such as a bullet or a katana. The best part about this is that this is the only effective countermeasure to devil fruit powers. This is why I was able to cut Buggy even though Zoro couldn't. It also gives you the ability to touch Loja devil fruit users who have fluid bodies such as me. Now allow me to demonstrate. Luffy turned around to face the tiger that was about to hit him when he raised his arm and put it directly in the tiger's path. The tiger hit his hand and was sent flying back, roaring in pain. That is the second type of Haki. However, a select few people can use a third type. Luffy then turned around to face an even angrier tiger. Luffy looked at the tiger and grinned. He stared at the tiger, letting out a wave of Hashoku Haki at it. The tiger began sweating furiously while looking at the grinning Luffy. To the tiger he looked like Satan himself. The tiger began backing up slowly, still terrified, and walked around before it fell over after losing consciousness. Nami and Zoro were speechless. They looked at Luffy, who still had not moved from that spot. Who would have thought someone this strong would just pop out of nowhere into their lives? That was the Hashoku Haki. Only 1 in a million people possess that Haki. It's the power of intimidation. The king's disposition is what some people call it, said Luffy while grinning. The power to make all kneel before you, the true power of a king, don't you agree? Said Luffy in a serious tone. Wait, Luffy, how do you learn to control Haki? Asked Nami, hoping that she could learn it as well. It took me about 2 years to get the basics down. Some people are born with the ability to use it, I was one of them. However, my abilities were spontaneous and I couldn't control them until my teacher taught me how to. To unlock and control your ability, you would need to go through rigorous and long training or go through extreme shock. However, I think you already have one type of Haki, namely Busoshoku, but you just don't know how to control it yet. But I'm pretty sure you don't have time to waste learning the basics. As Luffy explained, Nami was disappointed. Luffy went close to her and whispered into her ear, after you solve that problem with your village, I could teach you since you won't have anything to distract you. Shahehe. Luffy grinned and looked at Nami. Nami yelped in glee and hugged Luffy, jumping up and down, saying thank you a million times over, causing Luffy to blush a bit. So what you're saying is that it took you 2 years just to master the basics even though you were born with the ability? Zoro said, looking discouraged. Well, yay, but I was only 7 when I started learning. I'm sure you will learn faster since you're older than that. But the training will be extremely hard on both your body and your mind. I don't have the time to teach you guys right now, maybe when we get to the Grand Line we could start with the basics. Luffy said, giving his trademark grin. Zoro smirked, thinking that he is going to get stronger and one step closer towards reaching his goal. Man, we got sidetracked, I think we should go to an island and find a bigger ship to sail on, suggested Luffy. But before that he said that his stomach began growling. I'm hungry, let's eat. Shahehe. Nami and Zoro sweat dropped and joined him in his little feast. They ate the tiger they just beat. After they finished eating they headed over to the boat. Luffy ran past them and onto the water. Okay, I found an island, I'll run over there and see if it's habited. If it is, I'll run back here and we'll head there. Luffy stated. Nami and Zoro nodded and looked back at Luffy. Oh, and cover your ears, you forget what happened 30 minutes ago. Zoro and Nami cringed at what Luffy said and tried their best to not smack him. After Zoro and Nami covered their ears, Luffy jumped onto the ocean, and a split second later he was off running to the next island. Luffy reached the beach and used his Haki to look for inhabitants. He sensed only one town on the island. He ran back to Nami and Zoro who were patiently waiting for his return. "So you find a town?" asked Nami. "Yay, there is a small town on it, and that's it. I'm pretty sure we will be able to get a decent boat there." Luffy explained while he walked to the boat and sat down. "Alright, let's go," cheered Luffy as he created a current that would take them to the island. After all, he didn't want to get hit by Nami again, so he toned down the danger in his way of traveling. After a few minutes they arrived onto the shore of the island. There was only one place they could dock their boat. It was on a rocky shore. There was a cliff overlooking the sea near where they docked. There was a pathway going up through a break in the cliff probably made by inhabitants. After they got out of their boats they walked along the shore and reached the path. Just as they were about to walk up, some pachinkos flew through the air and hit the ground a foot in front of them. Luffy sensed someone was on the cliff behind a couple of bushes. Just as he was about to say something, dozens of pirate flags popped up out of the bushes. Nami and Zoro didn't seem fazed by this at all because they could see through the lie that was before them. Luffy grinned and decided to have a little fun with the kids. "I am the leader of the pirate group that has conquered this island. They call me Captain Usopp. Prepare to be amazed, for I have 80 million men at my disposal. Now prepare to die, pirates, my skill with a slingshot is better than a pistol," yelled Usopp. Luffy, already knowing what he said was a lie, turned to Zoro and whispered, "Follow my lead, we're gonna have a little fun." Zoro smirked and faced Usopp. "Well, since you mentioned pistols, bet your life on it," said Luffy in a serious and low tone. Usopp shuddered and was sweating furiously, similar to those who have been struck by Hashoku Haki. "That thing in your hand isn't a toy to scare people with, it's meant for actions," said Luffy. "This man standing before you is a real pirate," Zoro said, smirking at Usopp. Usopp knew that there was no turning back now. Doing the smart thing, he put down his slingshot and said, "I surrender, do your worst." Luffy, Nami and Zoro burst out laughing after Usopp said that, which left Usopp confused. After the laughter died down, Luffy looked up at Usopp. "Usopp, isn't it? The name of your dad?" Usopp's eyes widened at this comment and he immediately jumped off the cliff, plummeting 30 feet. He ran over to Luffy. "How do you know that name?" "And yes, that's my father's name," Usopp asked and was completely surprised. "He always bugged me and told stories of his kid back at home. He was a good friend of mine. He was on Shank's crew, he's the sharpshooter. I can tell you take after your father in that aspect." "Shahehe." Luffy grinned. "Wow, so my dad is a great pirate aboard the legendary red-haired Shank's ship. This is great news. How about we go into town and grab some lunch and talk some more?" asked Usopp in a cheerful mood. "Alright. Food. Let's go." "In town, so how do you know that my dad is on the red-haired Shank's crew?" Usopp asked Luffy. "Shanks visited my village, and that's where I met him and your dad. He kept annoying me and telling me stories about his kid back at home, which was you," replied Luffy while stuffing his face with food. "Just as I'd expect of my dad, to disregard his own life and seek out adventures on the sea. He is a true warrior of the sea," Usopp said with a dazed look. "Oh yay, I just remembered, we came here for a ship, do you know where we could find one?" Nami asked. "Oh, you're not going to find much of a ship in this small town," said Usopp. "There's a large mansion on top of the hill, I bet they could help us out," Zoro said as Usopp flinched in surprise. "No. You must not go up there," exclaimed Usopp. Well, I better get ye going, I remembered that I have to do something," Usopp said nervously while gathering his things. "I know the owner of this restaurant very well, so order as much as you'd like. Bye," he said while running outside. "That was weird. Whatever, more food for me. Shahehe." Luffy grinned while grabbing Usopp's food. Just outside of the restaurant, a group of 3 kids were tiptoeing around town until they stopped at the restaurant. They hid behind the bushes to conceal themselves. "Is this the place?" asked one of the kids. "I'm sure of it, I saw Captain Usopp go in there with those 3 pirates. We have to go in there and rescue him. If we don't he might get eaten by some Onibaba, hag witch." "Alright, let's get going," they yelled as they raised their little wooden swords and barged into the shop. When the kids got there they couldn't see Usopp and the 3 pirates were talking. They ran up what happened next and almost scarred them for life. The little boys walked up to the 3 pirates and yelled, "What have you done with Captain Usopp?" as they pointed their swords at them. Luffy was completely ignoring them and patting his stomach with a pleased grin. "Ah, that was some delicious meat," exclaimed Luffy in a happy and cheerful tone. The 3 boys' eyes widened and they shivered at a thought they hoped would not be true. Nami saw the boys' reaction and was giggling at how scared and stupid they were. Zoro saw the scared boys and found this as an opportunity to get a good laugh. "You want to know where your captain is?" Zoro asked in a menacing tone. He was eaten. Zoro exclaimed with a demonic smirk. Luffy and Nami were bawling their eyes out laughing until the three boys looked at Nami and screamed Onibaba. Nami was not amused and the kids earned 3 rather large bumps on their heads. Zoro and Luffy were laughing the entire time. After the laughter died down, they explained that Usopp left in a hurry after they asked him about that mansion on top of the hill. The kids calmed down after their explanations and just grinned. "Oh, I see, he just went to go see Kaya at her mansion," said one of the kids. "Huh, who's Kaya?" asked Luffy with his head tilted slightly. "Ah, she's the girl that lives in that mansion on top of the hill. She's been very ill from depression ever since her parents died a year ago. Captain Usopp goes up there to cheer her up," explained one of the kids. "Ah, I see, so if we go up there we can ask her to give us a boat." "Yosh, everyone, let's go," exclaimed Luffy as he ran out of the restaurant. Everyone ran behind him to catch up. "At Kaya's mansion, so how are we going to get in? We don't want to cause trouble and there are people guarding the gate," Nami asked. "Oh, I know," Luffy said while grabbing Nami and holding her bridal style. Nami held on to me tight. "You guys should grab on too," Luffy said while tightening his grip on Nami. "Oh oi. Luffy and Matt, what are you doing?" asked Nami while blushing. "I'm gonna launch us into her yard, however we might fly for a few seconds, that's why I'm holding you. You better hold on tight," said Luffy as he tightened his grip on Nami. Nami nodded and hugged Luffy tightly and buried her face into his chest. She couldn't help but notice his chiseled features and was blushing furiously. Luffy turned to the others and said, "You guys better grab on unless you don't want to come." Zoro nodded and grabbed Luffy's shoulders while the kids grabbed his legs. Luffy grinned and knelt down and turned his feet into water. Mizu Mizu launcher. Luffy shot a column of water from his feet to the ground, launching them into the air. They were flying in the air above the mansion for a few seconds. Gravity finally kicked in and they began plummeting. Nami instinctively gripped onto Luffy tighter while screaming. Luffy was laughing the entire time, but wrapped his arms around Nami farther to shield her from the fall. Zoro lost his grip when they were falling and was free-falling without anything to cushion or slow down his fall. The kids fainted and let go of his legs when they were falling. Luckily for Nami, Luffy shot another column of water from his feet to the ground, slowing their descent. Once Luffy touched the ground he saw Zoro and the kids unconscious on the ground. He gently placed Nami's feet on the ground. However, much to his surprise, Nami still had her face buried in his chest and was clutching his cardigan. She hadn't even noticed that they landed safely. "Nami, we landed safely, it's okay, you can let go of me now," Luffy said while gently lifting her head. Nami looked up at him, still shocked. Quickly, she regained her composure and left his arms and muttered a thanks while trying to hide her blush. "Well, that was a successful entry." Luffy laughed hysterically. "No, it wasn't," yelled the boys at Luffy with sharp teeth. "Who are you people?" asked a skinny blonde-haired girl from a window on the second story of the house. "Ah, you must be Kaya, I have a favor to ask of you," said Luffy while brushing off dust from his clothes. "A favor?" Kaya stopped talking as she noticed someone approaching from her garden. Kaya noticed the person was one of her caretakers. He had a black suit on. His glasses were round and kept sliding down his nose, and he was readjusting them regularly. "Oh, Karahaddle, these people were just asking me a favor, please don't mind them," Kaya explained to Karahaddle from the window. "You don't need to tell me. I will listen to your explanation later. For now I would like for all of you people to leave this property at once. Or do you people have something you would like to say?" said Karahaddle while walking up to the group. "Well duh, we wouldn't be here if we didn't need something. We want a ship for absolutely not." Karahaddle cut Luffy, making him pout and slouch to the ground depressed. "Usopp-kun," yelled Kaya to Usopp, who almost fell off the tree. "It's okay Kaya, I just slipped," said Usopp while climbing back up a tree. Kuro looked up at Usopp in the tree. "I've heard a lot of stories about you. I heard you're pretty famous in the village." "Well, I wouldn't be surprised, the tales of my adventures have probably reached the Grand Line," exclaimed Usopp. "Oh, so you have faced dangers before, that's quite something at such a young age," said Kuro with a blank face. Usopp grinned and placed a fist to his chest and said, "You can just call me Captain Usopp, that will help spread my name around. I've even heard stories about your father," Karahaddle calmly stating while pushing his glasses back up to his eyes with his palm. Usopp clenched his teeth in anger. "Nani?" Usopp asked while glaring daggers at Karahaddle. "Karahaddle, stop this right now," Kaya exclaimed after seeing Usopp's hurt expression. "You're nothing but the son of a low-class pirate. Although anything you do won't be much of a surprise to me, but would you stop bothering Oju-sama?" Karahaddle exclaimed at Usopp, which earned him 2 glares from Luffy and Usopp. "You dare make fun of my father?" Usopp growled at Karahaddle. "You come from a totally different world from Oju-sama. If you want money then name your price." "That's enough Karahaddle," Kaya yelled. "Apologize to Usopp-san right now," said Kaya while leaning out the window. Why should I apologize to such a barbarian as Himoju-sama? Kurahito asked, readjusting his glasses. I'm only speaking the truth, nothing more. However, I do sympathize with you. You must feel hatred towards your stupid father who abandoned you and your mother to search for treasure as a filthy pirate. Bastard, stop insulting my father or else. Usopp growled at Kurahito with clenched teeth and shaking fists. Usopp jumped off the tree and stood in front of Kurahito while glaring daggers. Why are they so agitated? This is the appropriate time to do what you do best, lie. Just say you have nothing to do with your father, or he's not your birth father, Kurahito said nonchalantly. This comment made Usopp snap, and he ran to Kurahito and punched him square in the side of his jaw. Shut up. Usopp yelled as Kuro was sent backwards. Seeing that he immediately resorted to violence, my point was proven. I guess it's understandable since his father is a pirate. Kurahito said. Shut up. I'm proud that my father is a pirate. He is a brave warrior of the sea and I'm proud of that. Although it's true that I'm a plain old liar, the blood of a pirate flows through my veins. That kind of honor can't be simply imitated. Usopp yelled at Kurahito. So pirates are warriors of the sea, eh? That is a pretty naive ideology. But this proves that you have the blood of a barbarian in you. You enjoy lying and resort to violence whenever something upsets you. Your ultimate goal is to acquire Oroju-sama's wealth, and that's why you got close to her. Kurahito stated while once again readjusting his glasses. Whether or not you have ulterior motives, just the fact that your father is a pirate is proof enough. Kurahito yelled. Usopp grabbed Kurahito by the collar and yelled, you insulted him again. Usopp was about to hit him again until Kaya intervened. Stop it, Usopp-san. Yelled Kaya from her window. Please don't resort to violence again. Kurahito is not a bad person, he's only being overprotective of me. Usopp was hesitating, but eventually loosened his grip and let go of Kurahito. Please leave this property and never come near it again. Kurahito exclaimed at Usopp. I get it, I would have left even if you didn't tell me to. I'm never coming back here again. As he said that he ran away. The kids began yelling at Kurahito and saying things like stupid and asshole. Kurahito just glared at them and the kids all ran and hid behind Nami. All of you leave right now. Kurahito yelled. One flashback about Kurahito's past later. Nami, Zoro and the kids, and too lazy to find their name, were sitting by a fence in the village. Hey, where did Luffy go? Asked Nami. No, maybe he went to find the captain. Zoro said while leaning against a fence with his arms behind his head. The captain should definitely be there. Said one of the kids. The other kid nodded and agreed, yay, he's probably at the coast, whenever he is troubled, he always goes there. Wanna go check on them and ask Nami to Zoro. No, I'll pass, besides Luffy can handle himself. I'm sure he's fine. Said Zoro as he closed his eyes and was trying to get some sleep. Also that reminds me, aren't you guys missing someone? Asked Nami to the two kids sitting down at the fence post. Animianiac. It was in the subtitles of the episode P, he always disappears to God knows where. Then he'll come out, running into town screaming. Said both the boys. And as if on cue, Animianiac came running out of nowhere screaming things like it's horrible or how could this happen. He was running until he got to the other two boys and began panting to catch his breath. I saw a very weird man walking backwards. He yelled while pointing in a random direction. Liar, the two kids chorused with blank expressions. It's true. See for yourself. Exclaimed Animianiac as he was pointed to the road. Nami and the two other kids looked to where he was pointing and saw what he was and saw the reason for his outcries. There was a man approaching them but not in the normal way. No, this man was moonwalking towards them. The man had a black hat concealing the top half of his face. He wore a dark blue jacket and long green dress pants. He had gray hair and was rocking red-tinted sunglasses with a lens shaped as hearts. The man turned around and looked at the group. Hey, who is it? Asked the man out of annoyance. Who's the guy who called me weird? He questioned. I am not weird, he calmly stated while doing what looked to be a weird sort of dance pose. Nami looked at the man with a blank expression. You look pretty weird to me. Nami started without any emotion in her voice. Hey, that's not true, I'm just a hypnotist passing by. A hypnotist? That's so cool. Exclaimed Animianiac. Show us something. They all chorused. Nani said to the man with a glare. You expect me to just show my hypnotic skills to a bunch of strangers I've never met? Okay, just stare into this ring. Said the man as he stood in front of the three kids. After I say 1, 2, Django, you will fall into a deep sleep. Here I go, he stated before he started swinging the ring back and forth. The boys completely focused their eyes on the ring and were following its motion. 1, 2, Django. The hypnotist stated before. After he said the last word, the three boys were knocked out and sleeping in the middle of the road. Unfortunately, the hypnotist didn't look away from the ring when he hypnotized the kids and was also knocked out. At the coastline, Usopp was sitting at the edge of a cliff under a tree staring out into the ocean. He seemed to be deep in thought as he didn't notice Luffy climbing into the tree. Luffy stuck his feet on the edge of the tree and dangled upside down in front of Usopp's face. This startled Usopp as he fell backwards. "So this is where you were?" Luffy said in his usual cheerful voice. "Hey. Can't you greet people normally? And what do you want?" asked Usopp with a sweat drop. "Nothing really," Luffy said as he dropped from the tree flat onto his face. He quickly recovered and sat down at the edge of the cliff with his legs dangling off the edge. Usopp was looking at him, then his expression turned sad as he was brought back to the focus of his thought before Luffy interrupted. "That damn caretaker, how dare he insult my father?" Luffy looked back and stated, "Yay, I don't like him either, it doesn't matter what anyone says though, I know Usopp and he is a great pirate. Isn't that right? In this pirate age my father fearlessly sails the seas in search of adventure, I'm really proud of him," Usopp said, his mood having turned much more cheerful. However, his mood turned angrier as he remembered Kurahito. "But that damn caretaker insulted my father, I can never forgive him. Oh yay, that reminds me, will you ever get to see that girl again? I know you like her, it's pretty obvious." "Shahihi," said Luffy laughing. Usopp looked at him and blushed in embarrassment from the comment Luffy made and shouted back, "Boy," while attempting to smack Luffy only to have him dodge the oncoming fist. "Relax, I can kind of tell when someone has feelings for another, thanks to Haki," Luffy said while giving his trademark grin. "It doesn't matter if I like her, I won't be able to see her if that damned caretaker gets in the way all the time," Usopp yelled, both frustrated and angry. "Oh, you mean that caretaker, right?" Luffy said while pointing down to a rocky beach just below the cliff. "Yeah, that caretaker. What is he doing here?" yelled Usopp, surprised as he ran to Luffy's side. Down on the beach was the caretaker from before, Kurahito. But he was also with someone else. To his side was the hypnotist from earlier who bumped into Nami and Zoro. The meeting they had looked pretty shady and Usopp decided he would watch and see what happens. Kurahito stopped walking to check his surroundings and checking to see if anyone was watching. Luckily for Usopp and Luffy, Kurahito couldn't see them above the cliff and turned to the hypnotist to begin talking to him. "Dango, I thought I told you not to attract attention while you were going through the village. But there you were, sleeping in the middle of the village. What are you talking about? I don't attract any attention." "I'm not weird either," Django calmly replied. "So are the preparations for the operation complete?" Kurahito asked while readjusting his glasses. "Of course," Django replied. "We can start at any time. The plan to assassinate Kaya your Oju-sama." Usopp was speechless and couldn't believe his ears. Did he hear that guy correctly? Did he just say assassinate? Usopp asked, mostly to himself. "Oh no, keep listening to Usopp, they might reveal more information," Luffy said now, listening to their conversation with interest. "Don't say assassinate, Django, that sounds too wicked," Kurahito stated. "Ah, sorry, I meant an accident," Django replied, correcting himself. "We can't just kill her outright, she has to die from an accident. Don't ever forget that, Django. Well anyways, we just wait for your signal to attack the village and then kill the Oju-sama. Then you will collect her inheritance," Django stated while sitting down on a rock. "Baka. Are you stupid? How can an outsider take her inheritance? Listen, this is the most important part," Kurahito stated while raising his voice. "Before we kill her, you will hypnotize her and make her write a will. In that will she will leave everything to the caretaker Kurahito. I spent 3 whole years gaining trust from everyone in the village, so no one would be suspicious, even if she leaves all her inheritance to me. You became a caretaker for 3 years just for this, it really surprised me back then, Captain Kuro," Django said. "You said you were going to quit being a pirate 3 years ago, and then used a subordinate to trick the Marines into believing they executed the real Kuro. And now we're here at your last heist until retirement. Don't call me by that name again, Django. I gave it up 3 years ago," Kuro said in a deadly tone. "Alright, sent you, just give us the signal and we'll begin the operation. My men have been getting impatient." "Okay, Django, I'll leave it to you." "Oi, Luffy, this is bad, they're going to attack the village, what do we do?" asked Usopp in a shaking and panicky voice. "I sensed an awful vibe coming from that Kuro guy when I first saw him, I knew he was no good. Listen Usopp, I'm going to deer up their plan a little and buy us some time. Stay here and don't do anything. If anything happens to me, I will be fine," Luffy told Usopp in a serious and commanding tone. Usopp just nodded and watched as Luffy got up and stood at the edge of the cliff. "Don't you dare hurt Kaya," yelled Luffy down at Kuro and Django. Usopp's sweat dropped from his simple, direct distraction. Kuro and Django looked up annoyingly at the two on top of the cliff. Usopp was shaking and looked like he was going to faint, while Luffy just had the most serious expression on his face. Kuro looked up and saw Usopp pulling on Luffy's arm. "Well, if it isn't Usopp-kun, did you hear anything?" Kuro asked in a dangerously low tone that told anyone in their right mind to keep their mouth shut. However, Luffy is not one of those people. "I heard everything," Luffy shouted, still with his serious facial expression. Kuro and Django looked at each other and nodded. Django sighed and brought out his hypno ring. I honestly don't know what it is, and began waving it back and forth. Luffy stood there calmly, already knowing what he was going to try to hypnotize him. Luffy thought about it for a moment. If I let him hypnotize me, I will probably fall asleep and fall down the cliffside. They would think I'm dead and not be expecting me to try and stop them when they invade. Or I could defeat these two guys now, but I still don't know where their crew is. I can't sense them, so they must not be near the island. I guess I'll just fight their crew when they invade. I bet Zoro is getting bored and wants something to do anyways. After Luffy was done thinking, he began staring at the ring, swinging back and forth like a pendulum. Django said, 1, 2, Django, and Luffy's eyes began closing until he was in a deep sleep. Luffy fell forward and off the cliff, plummeting until he hit the rocky shore face first. Usopp was speechless and looking at the place where Luffy fell and saw that he wasn't moving. Thinking that he was probably dead, Usopp ran away, trying his best not to throw up at the sight. He ran through the forest thinking one thing and one thing only: I have to warn and save everyone. But unknown to him, Luffy was just sleeping peacefully in an awkward position and was not even close to death. But Nami and Zoro. Nami was still sitting on the fence, patiently waiting for Luffy to arrive, while Zoro was just waking up from one of his 15 afternoon naps. Captain is running late, stated one of the children, not going to try and figure out their names. So is Luffy, stated Zoro, rather annoyed that Luffy hasn't showed up yet. Oh hey, look, someone is coming towards us, yelled Tamanegi. Down the road, they could make out a faint image of someone running towards them. After a few moments, the person came into view and they could make out that it was Usopp running towards them. What is this? Luffy isn't with him, said Zoro as Usopp came into clearer view. He could see that Luffy wasn't with them. Captain, the little boys yelled as Usopp came closer, but Usopp didn't stop to greet them and instead ran straight through them. The boys moved out of his way before they were trampled. Where's Luffy? Didn't he go to the coast with you? Nami asked. Usopp stopped for a second and decided it would be best to tell them the truth. Luffy was killed, that caretaker, Kurahadal, and some hypnotist killed him. I'm off to warn Kaya. Luffy's body is at the coast, Usopp said in a sad and angry tone. He soon began running off to the mansion. Nani? Said a surprised Nami. She had this horrible feeling of sadness in her heart that hurt more than any flesh wound could deal. Great, another person I've grown to like was taken from me, she thought. She tried her best to fight back the tears in her eyes as she imagined Luffy's lifeless body lying on the ground. Hey kids, take us to the coast, Zoro said to the kids. Zoro knew Luffy could not die so easily. Heck, he'd seen him take multiple bullets to the body and that didn't even scratch him. He knew his captain was alive and probably had some sort of plan, probably one involving him to have fake death. At the coast, this is the place. Captain comes here all the time to heal his wounded heart. It's really nice here, said Tamanegi as they looked around. The straw hat Ani-chan isn't here, said Paimon. Finally looked their names up. Nami was standing at the very edge of the cliff looking at the view. She knocked a loose rock down the cliffside and noticed that it was quite steep. This place is pretty steep, she said, informing them of her findings. Zoro noticed Nami standing too close to the edge and told her to be careful. Nami gave a nod and was about to walk away when she noticed someone at the bottom. However, panic took over her as she noticed the straw hat on the ground beside the body. Look, she exclaimed, pointing at the dead body. Zoro and the others ran to the edge to see what she was pointing at and noticed the body lying on the ground. They all quickly rushed down to the base of the cliff to see what happened. When they got there, what they saw surprised them. Luffy's head was planted into the ground while the rest of his body was on the ground. Nami saw this and almost burst into tears at the sight of his dead body. She was using all her will to not shed a single tear and hide her emotion. He fell off the edge and died. That's what Captain Usopp meant when he said he'd been killed, yelled the three kids in unison. Zoro didn't bat an eyelash as this seemed too suspicious. He was checking the surroundings to find any clues as to what happened when he heard a faint sound. Quiet, I hear something, Zoro said, and everyone immediately shut their mouths. Z z z z z z z z z was all they could hear aside from the waves coming from the ocean. Zoro immediately recognized the sound and grinned. He pulled out his katana and started poking Luffy with the sheath. When Zoro poked him, Luffy stirred awake and let out a huge yawn. Nami and the kids all backed away, scared that a dead guy was moving, but soon the shock turned into relief. As Nami got over the fact that Luffy was not dead, the relief and sadness she felt earlier soon turned into anger. Monkey D. Luffy, get over here, Nami growled in an extremely dangerous tone. Hi, Luffy said as he knew that kind of tone was dangerous and he didn't need to use Haki to know that she was clearly upset. However, instead of turning to water, Luffy thought that he should just let her take her anger out on him to let her calm down. When Luffy finally made it over, he was immediately met with a fist in his face. Do you have any idea how worried I was? Nami screamed as she grabbed Luffy by the collar and started swinging him around. Instead of complaining about the thrashing and the pain that was being dealt to him like a normal person should, Luffy heard what Nami said and smirked a little. You were worried about me? Luffy asked, still with that devious little smirk on his face. Nami was blushing furiously at what Luffy said and tried to hide it as best as she could. Oh, of course I was worried, I can't let the only pirate that I like die. Nami screamed, still swinging him around. Right before Nami was about to send another fist into Luffy's face, Luffy grabbed Nami and pulled her into a warm embrace. Sorry for making you worry, Nami, Luffy said while gently stroking the back of her head to provide comfort. You bastard, you think a hug is a good enough apology? Nami yelled at him while hitting his chest with her fist, but with barely any force put into it. Looks like I've already been forgiven. Luffy said with his trademark toothy grin. Zoro saw this little show of affection and was grinning uncontrollably. He couldn't let this opportunity go to waste, so Luffy and Naamii sitting in a Trekiss, but before Zoro could finish he was cut off by a wooden pole into his cough by none other than Nami. While Zoro was getting the beating of his life from Nami, Luffy was laughing like a maniac. After the madness settled down, it was back to business. Luffy explained to everyone about the whole Kayu will soon be assassinated ordeal. Why Kayu will be killed and the village destroyed, are you sure you heard right, Ani-san? The kids yelled in utter disbelief. Yay, that's what I heard and I don't believe they were lying, said Luffy as he placed his hat back on his head. But that still doesn't explain how you ended up at the bottom of the cliff, said Zoro. Well, it was between two choices, either I just defeat Kuro and Django now, but risk a surprise attack from the pirates, since I don't know where they are. Or, wait until they decide to attack the village and just defeat them all before they reach the village. I decided that we should go with option 2. I knew you'd be bored, Zoro, so I knew you'd be up for it. I let myself be hypnotized, then I fell down the cliff while I was asleep. They thought I was dead, so that gives me the element of surprise. DIC, I'm so glad that you thought of me sent you, Zoro said sarcastically. So what do we do now? Asked Nami. Well, Usopp was pretty spooked. I think we should tell him the whole plan since it involves his village, said Zoro with his arms crossed. After Usopp gets shot, rejected by Kaya, and chased out of the village. Oh, there he is. Captain, exclaimed the three kids as they saw Usopp standing in the middle of the road. Usopp covered up his wound, wiped his tears away and turned around with a fake smile planted on his face. Yo, what's up? Usopp said to the three kids. Yo, Luffy said nonchalantly to Usopp. Usopp gasped in shock at seeing Luffy here. He immediately ran over to where Luffy was and asked, Hey, you're still alive? Yeah, I just woke up. Anyways, Captain, we heard everything, let's go warn everyone, exclaimed Tamanegi. Usopp looked at the boys and thought that it would be better to keep them out of this conflict. So he decided he would do what he is best at, lying. I'm just kidding like I always do, I was just mad at the caretaker, so I went around calling him a pirate, Usopp stated as he started laughing. The kids started laughing as well and said, oh I see, you sure got straw hat on E-san, as they started to walk away. The laughing stopped when they got past Usopp and he turned around to see what was wrong. I'm starting to lose respect for you, Captain, they all said in unison. Even though that caretaker guy is mean, we never thought that you'd lie to hurt someone else to think we had so much respect for you, Captain. With that being said, they all walked away deciding that it should be best that they returned home. At the coast during nighttime, Nami was applying first aid to Usopp's injured arm. She was just done disinfecting the arm and was now applying bandages to it. Luffy, how come you didn't just heal his arm like you did Zoro? Nami asked. Oh, I'm no surgeon, I could heal his wound, but the bullet would still be inside his body, which would probably result in lead poisoning. It's best if he heals by himself right now. It's a good thing you knew how to remove the bullet, said Luffy with a grin. By the way, why did you lie to them? Asked Luffy to Usopp. 'Cause I'm a liar, said Usopp. No one would believe me in the first place. I was too naive. Even if you were naive, the truth is still the truth, stated Zoro. The pirates are going to attack tomorrow at dawn, but I will stop them and make sure that what I said really was a lie. Because even though they shot my arm, chased me all around the village, this is still my village, damn it. I love this village. Never thought you'd be the type to just ditch your friend and fight by yourself, Zoro said with a smirk as he placed his hand on Wado. Let me get this straight, all the treasure on that pirate ship is mine, Nami said with a straight face. Yosh. We'll lend you a hand, Luffy stated, confirming the actions of his nakama. At the slope, the pirates are planning to attack from tomorrow on this very coast. However, this is the only route that leads to the village. The rest are cliffs, so there is no other way to attack. So if we stand our ground on the slope, we should be able to fend off the pirates, Usopp explained. Sounds easy enough. Luffy stated. Of course it sounds easy, but we need real battle strength. What are you guys capable of? Usopp asked. Slicing, kicking ass, thieving, okay then I'll be hiding. Usopp said. They all punched him in the head and screamed. You will be fighting. Okay anyways, we should lay down some oil on the slope, they won't be able to get up if they keep slipping. Usopp said as he brought over some oil. After they finished laying down the oil, they decided that they would wait until dawn arrives to kick some ass. At dawn, they're not here yet, you sure this is where they were going to land? Luffy asked. They're definitely coming, I just knowed. Usopp said. Luffy sensed a large group of people docking at a different coast. He decided it would be best to tell everyone. Hey guys, I can sense a lot of people docking at the north side of the island, are you sure this is where they were going to land, Usopp? Luffy asked. Sh it. There's a slope just like this one on the north side of the island. I assumed they would be coming here since they met here. Shit this is bad. We have to hurry to the north slope. Usopp yelled while he ran around, panicking. Just then Nami remembered an important detail. Guys, our ships are docked on the north side. All of my treasure will be taken if we don't stop them now. Yelled Nami. Okay then let's go, I can be there in a second. Luffy said and grabbed Nami. He held her bridle style so that it would be more comfortable to run. Nami hold on tight, this may feel weird, but it will be over in a second. All blushing Nami just nodded and hugged Luffy as tight as she could and buried her face in the crook of his neck. Just like before, Luffy crouched on the ground and was prepared to run again. Mizu Mizu Godspeed. As Luffy said those words, he shot his leg forward with his devil fruit powers until he accelerated to Mach speed. Nami was screaming while she tried to not fall off from the sudden force. It felt like she had thousands of butterflies fluttering around in her stomach. As quickly as that feeling came, it went away as Luffy reached the destination. Luffy stopped at the top of the hill and gently put Nami back on the ground. He decided to wait for Usopp or Zoro before he would take action. Nami, let's wait till Zoro or Usopp gets here. I'll move our ship so they don't find your treasure. I'm going to move them to that other coast we were just at. As Luffy said that he created a small wave to give the boat a head start, then he created a little sea current to direct it to the coast. Alright guys, head for the village and attack. Django yelled as he commanded the pirates up the slope. Nami began panicking as the pirates came closer. She was very uneasy about the situation since they didn't have the traps they set up. Luffy, what do we do? Nami asked Luffy for some reassurance. Just stay behind me, this will be over soon. Luffy reassured her as she made her way behind him. Luffy stood there facing the horde of pirates running up the slope. Instead attempting to attack or defend himself, he stood in the same position, but this time, with a huge grin implanted on his face. As the pirates reached the top of the hill, they were greeted by a flurry of slashes and pachinkos. Zoro and Usopp had arrived. Yo Zoro, I'm surprised you didn't get lost trying to find this place, Shahihi. Luffy said mockingly at Zoro. Irasai? You're the one who ran off before we could follow you. Yelled a mad Zoro. Hey Captain, how are we gonna beat these guys? They just defeated some of our men like it were nothing. Said a pirate to Django. And these guys are strong so we'll just have to get stronger. That being said, Django brought out his pendulum and began swinging it back and forth in a pendulum motion. Luffy raised his eyebrow as he knew what he was going to do next. Instead of using the hypnosis to his advantage, Luffy decided that it would be better to give him the handicap, it was more fun that way. So he closed his eyes and waited patiently for Django to finish. Django continued swinging the ring while his men watched intently. When I say 1, 2, Django, you all will get stronger, much stronger. Okay 1, 2 Django. It was quiet for a second, and then all the pirates began cheering and roaring. One of the pirates even demonstrated their new strength by punching the cliff and shattering it to pieces. What the hell, he just hypnotized them, how does that make them stronger? Yelled Usopp and Nami. Oi Luffy, what do? We might need to try something other than attacking them head on. Zoro said while turning to Luffy. Luffy just stood there with his clothes not paying attention until Zoro interrupted his train of thought. Boy, Luffy. Zoro yelled, which startled Luffy. Oh Zoro, don't worry, I can take these guys on, here hold my katana, Luffy said. He decided he wouldn't use his katana right now. He needed to get better at using his devil fruit anyways. But don't use it, you might forfeit your life, Luffy said in a dangerous and serious tone. Not wanting to start an argument in the middle of battle, Zoro just nodded and took his katana. Luffy walked over to Nami and started taking off his cloak. Once he had it completely off, him stood in front of Nami with the cloak in his arms. Hey Nami, wear this while I'm out fighting, it might get dirty if I wear it. Luffy said while handing her the cloak. And be careful with it, I got it as a birthday present, Shahihi. Luffy said while giving his trademark toothy grin. Nami nodded and started putting the cloak on. She wrapped a string around her neck and looked behind her to see how it looked. It actually looked good on her and fit her perfectly, even though it was a bit long at the bottom. With the cloak on she felt this indescribable warmth around her body. It was oddly familiar. Where had she felt this before? Then she remembered all those hugs and moments with Luffy and how they felt. That's what this feeling is. I feel so safe with this on. She thought as she was daydreaming. Her train of thought was interrupted by Zoro, who was yelling at her. "Oi Nami, get back or you might get caught up in this." Nami nodded and began heading up the slope, taking one quick glance at Luffy, whom was waving at her with a smile as she headed back. She couldn't help the smile that crept to her face as she ducked down for cover while watching the battlefield. After seeing that Nami had found safety, he turned to Zoro and Usopp and said, "I'll handle these guys for now. If any get past me and manage to get up the slope, feel free to take them out," said Luffy as he got into a fighting stance. Zoro and Usopp nodded as they prepared for their fight. The pirates began ascending the slope and getting closer and closer to their target. Luffy grinned and crouched down while turning both his arms into water. Mizu Mizu Luffy shot forward at supersonic speeds and shot out huge jets of water from both his arms, slamming them into the oncoming pirates. Hydro cannon. Every single pirate was knocked out the moment that the blast hit them. An attack at supersonic speeds plus the force of the attack would have killed them all if not for Django's hypnotism. Sorry guys, looks like I took all the fun. Shahee. Luffy said while rubbing the back of his head. Whatever, but I get the next enemy, no questions asked. Got it. Zoro said while smirking. Yeah, whatever, I'll just be here, shout out if you need any help. Luffy said to Zoro as he leaned against the slope waiting for more pirates. Django was looking around at all the unconscious bodies of his men. He was really nervous about the whole situation, considering their captain would kill them right away if they failed this operation. Shit, that kid really screwed us over. Captain Kuro made a huge miscalculation. If Captain Kuro sees this, we'll all definitely be killed, said Django while clenching his teeth, trying to figure out a plan to take down these kids. Hey Bucci, look what happened out here, said an unknown person on the ship. What's all this? Said another voice that was also coming from the ship. Django was surprised at first, but remembered an important detail. We still have our trump cards. Come out, Nyaban brothers. Django yelled. As Django said that, two people jumped from the ship and landed onto the beach. You call captain? Said the smaller of the two people that just arrived. Bucci Sham, we must get past the slope, but as you can see our men are incapable of fighting and we have people in our way. Take care of that swordsman up there, said Django as he pointed at an extremely intimidating Zoro. The two brothers cringed in fear and they looked as if they had just seen a ghost. That's impossible for us, Captain Django. He seems way too strong for us to handle. And our responsibilities are only to watch the ship, not to fight on battles. The skinny one said as he and his partner were backing away, clearly showing fear. Luffy could see through their little act, using Haki of course. I probably shouldn't interfere in his fight, though I certainly wouldn't want anyone interfering in mine. Whatever, Zoro's strong, he'll beat them. Luffy thought as he sat down and leaned against the wall. Hey kid, are you not gonna back up your friend over there? Django asked to Luffy. No, I'm gonna sit this fight out. Zoro has been bored lately, and I know I wouldn't want for someone to interfere in on their fight, so you don't have to worry, you're safe for a few more minutes. Besides, I can already see through your friend's act, said Luffy as he closed his eyes. Suit yourself, it's your friend's funeral. Django said as he turned to look at Sham running towards Zoro in the weirdest way possible. Daya, get ready, for I'm going to rip you to shreds, Sham said while running at Zoro. Zoro just sweat dropped, not knowing what to do. Hey you. If you don't stop, I'll have to kill you, Zoro yelled, not wanting to fight a weakling. Sham paused for a moment and said in a dangerous tone, that's if you can kill me, as he said that he grabbed the katana in Zoro's hand, blocking his attack. When Zoro wasn't able to stop him, he grabbed the 3 katana from Zoro, 2 of Zoro's and Luffy's katana. You underestimated me, he said as he jumped back with the 3 katana on his back. Zoro was about to pull out his other 2 katana when he noticed they were missing. Luffy's was too. Sham noticed the confused Zoro and smirked. Lose something? I wouldn't know anything about it, Sham said with a devilish smirk. Zoro noticed the katana on his back. Give those katana back right now. But don't you already have one in your hand? These will only get in the way, Sham said as he removed the katana from his back and threw them behind him. Zoro grew angrier now that his katana were being mistreated. He ran towards Sham with killing intent. How dare you throw my treasures, he said as he sliced through Sham. It seemed like Sham was cut, so Zoro ran past him and tried to reach his katana. Unfortunately, Sham played another trick and grabbed Zoro from behind and brought him crashing to the ground and pinned him. Bucci. Now it's your turn, Sham yelled to the bigger one of the two. Gotcha, Bucci yelled as he jumped 60 feet in the air. He then began accelerating downwards with his foot directly in the path of Zoro's head. Just when he was about to make contact with his head, Zoro broke out of Sham's grip at the last second and rolled away. Bucci used enough force to create a little crater where Zoro's head was just a few moments ago. Shit, every bone in my skull would have been broken if I didn't break free. Zoro thought as he was panting heavily trying to regain his composure. Damn, he got away, said Sham. Hey, you have to keep him held down for that to work, exclaimed Buchi. Whatever, he's not getting away this time. I'm not great at one sword style, but I'll have to manage for now, said Zoro as he got into his fighting stance and prepared for their assault. Let's go, Buchi, yelled Sham as they both lunged forward at Zoro. They began attacking Zoro in a flurry of attacks. All Zoro could do was defend against the attacks. They kept the exact same pace throughout their assault, forcing Zoro to begin backing up while he blocked all their attacks. Seeing this, Usopp decided he should help Zoro, so he ran to the top of the hill where Nami was hiding so he could shoot from above, giving him the advantage. I'm gonna shoot one of those guys so Zoro will get an opening, he said to Nami. Lead star, Usopp yelled as he shot the pachinko towards the fight. Seeing this, Zoro moved into the trajectory of the pachinko, resulting in him getting hit in the back hard. He clenched his teeth in pain and stopped his blocking, giving the two foes an opening to strike. They both sliced into Zoro's chest, giving him big wounds all across his chest. He flew backwards from the attack, which gave him enough distance from the two brothers to get up and continue fighting. Why did you hit our own people? Nami yelled at Usopp. No, it's not like that, it's like he let himself be hit on purpose, Usopp said, still shocked from what just happened. Baka, do you want to die? Yelled Zoro to Usopp. Could it be that we were the ones that were just saved? If you had hit them with the pachinko we would have been their targets. Nami suggested. Shit, if only I had another katana, I could mop the floor with these guys. Zoro thought as he continued to block all their attacks. I got it. I'll just go get Steel back his sword so he can fight properly. Nami said as she began running down the slope. Luffy was sitting down while leaning against the slope wall looking at the fight with interest. He then saw Nami running down the slope. I thought I told her to stay at the top where it was safe, Luffy thought. However, Luffy failed to notice Django standing where Nami was running to. When Luffy did notice it was too late, Django used his ring to slice Nami's shoulder, causing her to fall down to the ground while screaming in pain. After seeing this, Luffy's rage skyrocketed and he began shaking. His eyes began glowing a bright blue. His aura turned into an extremely deadly and dangerous one that would make even the strongest of men cower in fear. He got up and began walking towards Django and Nami. Nami didn't notice anything as she was still on the ground writhing in pain. Luffy finally made it behind Django, while Django still didn't notice the extremely deadly aura behind him. You heard Nami, said Luffy in an extremely angry and deadly tone. This caused Django to turn around, and when he did he began cowering in fear. He looked at the boy, his eyes were glowing a bright blue, and he seemed extremely upset as he was shaking in rage. That is all Django could see or think right before he met a supersonic, Haki-infused punch right into his gut, sending him flying up to the top of the slope. Luffy's rage subsided as he then knelt down beside Nami, who was still clutching her shoulder. "It," she said in a soft voice, she didn't even notice Luffy beside her. "I know it hurts, just bear with it for a few more seconds," Luffy said in a warm and reassuring voice. This alarmed Nami as she quickly turned her head in the direction of where she heard the voice. She quickly relaxed as she saw Luffy smiling warmly at her. She clenched her teeth in pain as he touched the wound, but the pain subsided soon after. Luffy began increasing blood flow to her shoulder, which resulted in the wound healing and scabbing over. Now just because I healed the wound doesn't mean you can go right back to lifting heavy treasure, and also it still needs to be bandaged. Now let's see what I can use. I got it, Luffy said as he took off his cardigan. He sprayed it with water to thoroughly clean it. He ripped each sleeve off and began using it to wipe the blood off her shoulder. He used the rest to tie around her shoulder as a temporary bandage. There, that should do it, he said as he began grinning. But now, this left him without anything to cover his upper body. Seeing his half-naked body made Nami blush furiously and turn her head away from Luffy. Thanks, she said while her head was still turned in the other direction, so she couldn't see Luffy. Luffy turned his head to look at the top of the hill and furrowed his brows when he saw what awaited him. There, standing at the top of the hill, was none other than Captain Kuro. Django managed to get himself off the ground and looked up to see Captain Kuro menacingly staring down at him. "Never thought you would be beat up by these kids. Guess the Kuroneko pirates are not what they used to be, right?" Django Kuro yelled the last part, and everyone could clearly see that he was upset, or rather, he was furious. But you didn't you say that these kids wouldn't be a problem?" Django said in an extremely nervous tone. "Yes, I did. So what? I knew they would try and stop us, but what I didn't expect was for you fools to be so damn useless. How dare you call us useless, Captain Kuro? It's true that you were strong once before, but that was 3 years ago. When you were fooling around playing butler in a peaceful village, we were training and raided countless islands." Sham exclaimed. "What are you implying?" Kuro stated in a calm yet dangerous tone. "Do you think you have enough strength to beat us now?" Sham and Buchi both exclaimed as they ran towards Kuro. While they were charging at Kuro, Kuro raised his duffel bag into the air and began moving his feet extremely quickly. When Buchi and Sham finally lunged for the kill, they found themselves slashing nothing but the duffel bag. Kuro moved quickly behind them and reappeared in front of Zoro in less than a second. "Who were you going to kill?" Kuro said in a menacing voice while also revealing blades that were 3 feet long and began at his fingertips, similar to that of a cat. "Turn around." Both Sham and Buchi exclaimed. But when they turned around, they saw no one other than Zoro standing there. "There it is, stealth foot," said Django, who retreated away from the battle down the slope. "You guys are right, I'm not as fast as I once was," Kuro said as he appeared behind the Nyaban brothers and put his arms around both their shoulders, pointing the sharp edge of the blades towards their necks. "I've become more humble after staying on this island for so long, so I'll give you 5 minutes. If they are all still alive after the 5 minutes are up," then he began backing off the brothers. "All of you here will be killed by me," he said while getting into fighting stance. 5 minutes, we'll manage to beat them in 5 minutes, somehow it's all him, the guy with the green bandana, we have to beat him," said Django in a very nervous and panicking tone of voice. Luffy saw Zoro's current predicament and he decided to aid him, but do it indirectly. He walked over to the katana on the ground. He picked his up and strapped it back onto his waist and he threw Zoro's towards him. "Boy, don't throw my katana," exclaimed Zoro as he saw what Luffy did. Where's my thank you?" Luffy said with a cheeky grin. Thank you," said Zoro as he grabbed the 2 katana and unsheathed them. He put Wado into his mouth and held the other one. Zoro got into a fighting stance with his 3 swords as he stood in position, waiting for the brothers who were already approaching him with killing intent. "Fool, you think having 3 swords will be enough to stop us? The results will be the same," they yelled as they got closer and closer to Zoro. Zoro got into a position where the 2 katana were perpendicular to Wado and were pointed downwards. "Tiger, you guys just don't get it, do you? Hunting prey," he yelled as he lunged forward and slashed both of the brothers, killing them, or at least knocking them out, and sending them flying behind him towards Django. "Having 3 swords and using 3 sword style are completely different," said Zoro as he began sheathing his katana. Buchi grabbed onto Django's leg and muttered, "That bastard, I'll kill him, please hypnotize me please, Captain." Zoro looked behind him and noticed that he was still alive. "Must have been saved by all that fat," he muttered as he turned around to finish the job. However, what he saw shocked him. It looked as if Buchi was going through a transformation as his muscles were growing in size and his pupils began blanking out as his eyes turned completely white. He got up and turned around facing Zoro, baring his teeth and going towards him with the intent to kill. "Crap, this is going to be a pain. That guy could crush the ground in his normal state, I wonder what he could do now," thought Zoro as he got ready to go into another fight. "Crap, Luffy, Zoro might be in trouble, you have to help him," yelled Nami. "You're not going to be helping anyone," Django yelled as he flung his ring towards Luffy's neck. Luffy already saw this coming seconds before Django even begun his action, so he decided he would screw with everyone. As the ring began flying closer and closer to his neck, his serious expression turned into a toothy grin as he turned to Nami. Nami was shocked and yelled for him to watch out, but it was too late. The ring cut Luffy's neck and sent his head flying towards Nami. His head landed in front of Nami with his eyes still open and that grin still on his face. Nami saw this and let out a scream that could cause people's ears to begin bleeding as she fearfully backed away and put her head in between her knees to shield her eyes from the sight. However, what she heard next shocked her and everyone that was there. Luffy's head began laughing uncontrollably as his body was rolling around clutching its sides. After the laughter died down, the body got up, grabbed the head and then threw it in the air. The head turned into water, and the water began reforming as a head where the body was missing one. Luffy's head was once again attached to his neck, and he had that same toothy grin he wore before he was decapitated. He turned to look at Nami, and the expression she had on her face was priceless. Luffy began roaring in laughter as he, once again, rolled around clutching his sides while laughing his head off. "You should have seen the look on your face, ha 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 ha, it was priceless," he said while doubling over in laughter. Once the shock subsided, Nami began fuming with rage as she looked at the laughing Luffy. She went over there and gave him the beating of his life, one that was even comparable to Garp's. "That's whack for Thump scaring punch me," she yelled as she began panting with rage. "Ha ha ha ha, that was worth it though, I wish I had a camera or something so I could have taken a picture of that face, ha ha ha," exclaimed Luffy as he was still laughing his ass off. "Alright LOOFY, just for that, you have to go and steal the treasure on their ship and be back here in less than a minute unless you want to be in a debt that makes the United States, haha, debt look like nothing," Nami said with a vein popping out of her forehead and with clenched teeth. "Aye, sir," Luffy said while giving a mock salute and ran to and through the ship at supersonic speeds. After a few seconds of storming through the ship, he found the room filled with treasure. He grabbed it all and ran back to Nami as fast as he could. Well, there wasn't that much treasure, I think like 5 million Beelies worth. He said while putting the treasure down next to Nami. No, it's completely fine. Arigato. Yelled Nami as she ran up and hugged Luffy while he was grinning and rubbing the back of his head with a slight blush. Alright Bucci, you take care of that swordsman over there, I'll take care of the Straw Hat Kid. Django said as he was facing Luffy with his back towards Bucci. Okay Nami, just have a little rest here, this will be over in a few minutes. Said Luffy in a cool voice as he gently placed Nami to the side. He took his cloak from Nami and covered Nami with it like a blanket. Nami soon closed her eyes and began drifting to sleep as she knew it was safe to do so, as long as Luffy was there. By this time, all the members of the pirate crew began to stir awake and they saw the leaders of their crew preparing to fight the kids that were giving them a hard time. Someone was walking through the woods and made it to the beginning of the slope. Kuro thought that someone was sneaking behind him and so he turned around to attack the person. However, Usopp immediately recognized who it was and dove in to protect the person. He managed to get there in time before Kuro could hurt the person, but Kuro managed to slash Usopp before he managed to get to a safe distance from him. Kuro had a look of shock as he realized who he almost cut down. However, that shock quickly subsided and he regained his composure. Usopp-san, are you alright? Said Kaya. The person who Kuro attacked was Kaya. Kaya, what are you doing? Usopp said while wincing in pain from the slash. I'm sorry Usopp-san, I know that you might never forgive me for what I have done. But I can't believe the Kurahedal is a pirate. Kaya said sadly. That doesn't matter now, I told you to run away, didn't I? He wants to kill you. Usopp exclaimed as Kaya was on the brink of tears. But you're still fighting even though you're hurt. Kaya exclaimed in a concerned voice. Kaya Oju-sama, why are you here? Kuro said in a calm voice. Please, stop this Kurahedal. Yelled Kaya. Mary told me everything. If you want my fortune I'll give it all up. So please, leave this place. Right now. Kaya yelled, trying to solve this dispute peacefully with the least amount of casualties. I thank you for your offer, however there's one thing that I desire and that's the tranquility of my soul. Kuro said in a menacingly low voice while he readjusted his glasses. All I want is tranquility. I spent 3 years gaining the trust of the villagers, which made me feel unbelievably comfortable. Therefore, I'd like to keep this sense of tranquility with me forever. Kuro calmly stated. Kaya was shocked from this and began backing away, all the while trembling. She brought a gun out of her coat pocket with trembling hands and pointed it at Kuro. You're not Kurahedal, leave this village. Kaya said with still trembling hands. Oh, so you're pointing a gun at me, so that's how it is. You've grown quite a lot these past 3 years. I remember nursing you when you were sick from grieving over your parents' deaths. All that was so I could kill you someday. Today being that day. Yelled Kuro as he took Kaya's gun from her. Tears finally rolled down Kaya's cheek as she bit her lip to keep herself from sobbing. Captain Kuro had to keep a smile for a girl whose nose always sniffled. He said as he dropped the gun. No matter how much I hated it, I tried to make you happy. He said in a disgusted tone. Usopp was looking at Kuro with all the hate he could muster and muttered, you bastard. Can you imagine me, the former Captain Kuro, doing such things? He yelled loud enough for everyone to hear. By now, Luffy was quite irritated by Kuro's thinking. Usopp picked the gun off of the ground and stood up quickly to catch Kuro off guard and shoot him. After Usopp shot, Kuro used stealth foot to avoid the bullet and went behind Usopp. Kuro surrounded Usopp's head with his 5 claws. I believe you still owe me for that punch you gave me earlier. You hit me pretty hard that time. Usopp was trembling in fear until he looked at the slope and noticed Luffy was getting into a fighting stance, but what Usopp noticed was his glowing blue eyes that sent a shiver down his spine. The next thing Usopp saw was a fist made of water flying at Kuro's face and knocking him back several meters. Since you hate punches so much, I'll give you 100 more for free. Luffy said as he grinned that cheeky grin of his with those same glowing blue eyes. What the hell is he, yelled the crew as they stared at Luffy, mouths agape. Suddenly out of nowhere all the kids of the Usopp pirate crew appeared and began beating Kuro with various kitchenware and baseball bats. They were screaming things like give up and kill him. After they were done beating the crap out of him, they ran over to Usopp. Captain, you were fighting them all along. Why didn't you tell us the truth? They all exclaimed. Never mind that. You guys have to get out of here now. Usopp yelled. No. We're fighting. If we were to run, that would bring dishonor to the crew. Yelled all 3 boys. Kuro got up looking unfazed from their little assault and stood behind the band of misfits. The kids began shivering in fear until they turned around, which turned their shivering into spasms and screaming. Instead of slicing them up, Kuro just walked past them back onto the battlefield. Not bad, that was a pretty good punch you managed to lay on me. So you have the powers of the Akuma no Mi, don't you, boy? Kuro said with a glare. Yeah, the Mizu Mizu no Mi, I'm a waterman. Luffy said with a cheeky grin. The entire crew was freaking out, saying things like, what, that's bad news. And those things exist. Kuro was silent for a moment and appeared to be thinking until he spoke up. Django. I will take care of this kid, you take care of Kaya Oju-sama. Make her write the will as planned, then kill her. Also the 3 ants over there, they're an eyesore. Kuro said as he prepared for his attack. Understood, Django said as he began walking up the slope, only to be stopped by one of Zoro's swords blocking his path. Stop. I won't let you pass me. Zoro said calmly. Uchi? Yelled Django. Butch was now growling loudly and jumped up into the air to attack Zoro. Cat kill, stump. He yelled as he quickly descended. That again. Zoro said as he jumped away to avoid the attack. However, what happened next caught him off guard. An entire section of the slope and cliff were destroyed from the raw physical power of the attack. Due to the rocks crumbling, there was now a heavy smokescreen which Buchi used to his advantage and grabbed Zoro's shoulder and pinned him to the cliff wall. Zoro managed to stick his foot out to Buchi's face, preventing him moving any further to attack him. You've already lost to me once. Didn't I tell you not to bother me anymore, out of my way? Zoro yelled as he kicked Buchi in the face with his other foot. While Buchi was dazed, Zoro brought out his other 2 katana and lunged forward to slash Buchi across the chest, effectively killing him, or at least knocking him out. By now Luffy was ascending the slope as Kaya and the kids retreated into the forest. While Zoro was distracted, Django had used the opportunity to go after Kaya and the 3 children. Usopp, you go and look for Kaya and the kids. Leave everything here to us. Luffy said. Usopp, who was on the ground bloodied and bruised, courtesy of Kuro, used what little strength he had left to pick himself up off the ground. He was trembling as he got up and managed to turn to Kuro. As he was about to walk forward, Usopp lost all his strength and fell back to the ground. After seeing this pathetic display, Kuro began snickering, which soon turned into an hysterical laughter. You really amuse me. Even if you do catch up to Django, you'd be no match for him. It would be safer for you if you stayed here. Kuro said while laughing a little. Even if can't, I want to protect them, for I am the captain of the Usopp pirate crew. I am a brave warrior of the sea, and I will not let you lay a hand on any of the villagers. Usopp bellowed for the world to hear. Well said, Usopp. Luffy said as he continued to glare at Kuro. The pirate crew down by the shore were watching and began saying things like, what the hell was that, and look, he's crying, how pathetic. As they all started laughing. After hearing this, Luffy's anger rose even more as he punched the cliff and broke off a huge piece off rock. He took the rock and flung it at the pirates, hurtling them backwards. What's so funny? Luffy yelled as his glowing blue eyes scared the pirates shitless. Luffy, I'm taking Usopp with me to find that hypnotist. Any problems? Zoro asked as he bent down and picked up Usopp. None. Get going. Luffy yelled back. As Zoro was continuing up the slope, Kuro spoke and said, hey, who gave you permission to go past this slope? That would be me, Luffy said as he appeared in front of Kuro in a split second and tried to slash him, only to have his sword blocked by Kuro claws. He then tried punching him, but Kuro managed to use stealth foot and avoid his attack. Luffy knew Kuro was gonna attack him from behind, so he ducked and kicked his legs up to try and get a swing at him, but Kuro used stealth foot and dodged again. Crap, he's fast enough to even keep up with me. Oh well, at least Zoro and Usopp got away. Luffy said while he waited for Kuro to reappear. When he did appear, Luffy turned to him while thinking. Shanks told me that if I want to become Pirate King, I would need strong Nakama to help me along the way. But for my second dream, I would need a massive fleet of Nakama. I need to get Kuro to join my crew. I can already sense with Haki that he is not completely evil, and his brilliant mind would help greatly for my other goal. To avenge Sabo's death by destroying the world government. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the ArcadianKnight for writing that awesome fanfic. See you in the next video. Goodbye.